Hello everyone, for this video we're going to be discussing what the anime could do after the Thousand Year Blood War arc adaptation. With me I have Mark from Real Talk. Mark, how are you?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me on the channel again, especially to talk about Bleach. I mean, I'm sure we're going to do more of these, especially as we start learning more about what's to come with the revival.
Yeah, so let's just get right into it. I'll have you start first. Let's just talk about the practicality and the realistic possibility of this. Do you think they'll even do an anime after the Thousand Year Blood War arc? I know obviously we have the Burn the Witch OVA. What do you think?
I feel like we came up with this list a long time ago about all these discussions that you and I wanted to have, and I think that this was one of mine. Personally, I don't think that that's going to happen. I feel like they're just going to use this to tell this arc, hopefully give it a little bit more filler and just kind of pad out the story, get to see things that we didn't get to see, maybe use those light novels as inspirations for parts of the story that we didn't really get to see in the anime or manga, and then it's just going to end. Hopefully that's good enough for everybody, but man, if it's a gigantic success, I don't see a problem with them continuing it in the exact same way they continue Dragon Ball Super, where they don't have the manga to go off on anymore, but they have Kubo, his notes, and everything that you want to do with that universe, and just kind of do a completely different story. Now, the context of that is a little bit iffy. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff you could do. Bleach isn't as straightforward of a story as something like Naruto or Dragon Ball or something else like that. Ichigo is a far more complex character than a lot of people give him credit for. And even though the story is very boilerplate, someone gets kidnapped, go into a society that you're unfamiliar with, battle all these people, get power-ups, rescue the person, take out the big bad guy, and then kind of rinse, wash, and repeat. So hopefully they do something better with that, is what I'm saying. But still, there seems to be, if you just look at the final chapter with that time skip, I bet there's more story you could tell there, whether it's a sequel with the kids or doing something within the time skip or just in general, whatever a creative person can think of going into it. What are your thoughts on them just doing it?
I think we're both in agreement that it's not super likely to happen, although you do bring up a good point. It's a big series. It's one of the big three. We have Naruto, we have Boruto, we have One Piece, which just the manga is still going to take at least another 5, 6, maybe 7 years to finish. So that anime isn't going anywhere. So as far as Bleach, it's not impossible that we would get an anime after the Thousand Year Blood War arc. It's just a matter of would they be willing to invest the resources? And like you say, there's still so much we don't know about the anime that we're gonna get. We know a little bit about Burn the Witch, that it's gonna be an OVA, and that the studio who did the Pokemon Twilight OVA is gonna be working on it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I would say it's unlikely that we're gonna get an anime after the Thousand Year Blood War arc. I think they kind of just want to wrap things up because, admittedly, this is been hanging around, and I'm sure Kubo and everyone else just wants to give this the adaptation it deserves. Mm-hmm. But again, it's a source of revenue, so it's not like they're opposed to the idea. It's not like they're these super big fans of the series that are just oh, we just need to put it to a stop. As we know, companies will bring a series back if it's going to make them money. And to go off of that, let's talk about if they do make that kind of decision, what would be the proper way to go about it? My first question to you is, how would you feel about, let's pretend that the Thousand Year Blood War arc just finished, they killed it. Now they announce that they're going to do a sequel series with the kids, Kazoi and Ichika. How do you feel about that?
I feel like I personally would be far less interested in that type of story. Now, I think you could speak far more to this than I can, so I want to hear your opinion on it. But this is one of the real big hiccups I have with not just Naruto as a series, but also Boruto, is I think the older I get, the more I have a hard time focusing on childish storytelling And when you have to start over a series, focus on the kids of the protagonists of the original series and just kind of go from there, you lose a lot of the maturity that you get going, that you got as you age with these characters. It's basically the story telling you, you love these characters, now love their kids and see how they grow up and everything. It's like, okay, that would have been cool probably like 12 or 15 years ago for me, but I've moved on and I don't really care about the kids anymore, especially if the parents aren't going to be a main focus of the story. I mean, I would kind of say it's a little bit like Dragon Ball GT. I think they really picked up the ball with Dragon Ball GT, not just the fact that they got canceled, they weren't allowed to really tell the stories that they wanted to tell, so they just kind of shoved all of them in the last handful amount of episodes, and it feels rushed and not really well planned out or even well executed. But with Bleach, I would imagine that I would be like, okay, this is not very fun. Like, I want to see what Ichigo and Rukia and all of them are doing at this point and how they're still being tested and tried. And you know what? Seriously, if Kubo is going to be in charge of it or some other person is going to be in charge of it, I want them talking about something that's relevant in their lives. I mean, Kubo has grown up. His characters have grown up. It's one of the best things about Dragon Ball and Toriyama, where he allowed Goku to grow up, and it just kind of built off Goku and continued through Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, and even Dragon Ball Super to a lesser degree, where you're following the character progression of one character as he ages with his audience. If you give it to the kids, you're just going to run into a huge, like, cultural, generational shift, and then it's going to be harder for me to get into the story again.
Yeah, you bring up a good point with the other big three. Now, let me point out, I haven't mentioned Prequel because I suppose it's possible to do a prequel series, but I bring that up because we already know from the manga, we already know what happens prior to the time of Ichigo, and I really don't see any need to explore what happened before then because we've been given the answers. And, like, there's nothing really to know about the setting prior to Ichigo. For them to do a sequel series, first of all, they would need a manga source material. The issue with Boruto is there is source material, but because of the release schedule of the chapters and because they started the anime way too soon, a majority of that anime is filler. And that's why, although Naruto fans really like it, it's not as hyped as it could be. Now, if they decided to go this route with Bleach, like you say, Kubo would need to be involved, and there would need to be like a reason to get involved in the manga, never mind the anime. And to compare to Dragon Ball, with GT and Super, the problem with that was because there was already so much done in Z, they kind of had to invent these new settings and these new places to go for there to be any reason to continue the story. The same reason, or the same issue would be with the kids, is while I would enjoy seeing the family, it's not like with Naruto and Boruto where it's cool to see him finally become the Hokage and see what he's like after he's achieved his dream. Ichigo isn't like that. He didn't want to be the Hokage. He didn't want to be like the king of the pirates. He just wanted to save his friends. So now that he's a dad, yeah, it'd be cool to see him as a dad, but I don't want to watch 2-3 seasons about him being a dad. So there would have to be some compelling interest in the universe for me to watch. And I'll transition to Burn the Witch because I think Burn the Witch would be a much better option. Now, like I said, as of right now, all they have planned is an OVA that I believe is based off of the one-shot, although we're getting a new manga. My question to you is, and I know you haven't read it, so without spoiling, I'll just, for anyone who has not read it, what happens with Burn the Witch is we find out that there is a western branch of Soul Society, the eastern branch being Japan and that area, and the western branch being Europe and London and that area. So my question to you is, again, same situation. Let's pretend they killed 1,000-Year Blood War arc. What would be some sort of compelling reason for you to watch Not the OVA, but a new Burn the Witch anime.
Well, I think if that were to be the case, and it is a connected universe, we can learn a lot more about the Soul Society, or just how all of this works worldwide, not just in Japan. Then it would be really interesting to make that a big deal. Do a Burn the Witch anime, have crossover events, or bring in characters or people that we know from Bleach into that world to be mainstay characters, or people who are just kind of guest stars as the show or manga goes on. And then play up that crossover until Burn the Witch becomes its own thing. That way we understand that we're still in this universe while not having to kind of beat a dead horse with Bleach, Ichigo, and all the characters from that series. And maybe even some ripple effects of everything that happened in the Thousand Year Blood War arc can kind of play out in the new series like Burn the Witch. It would be really interesting too. I mean, this is not anime related, but for anybody who even has any semblance of memory from the Born Legacy Born franchise with Born Legacy, I know, deep cut, especially outside of an anime discussion, but the most interesting thing to me about the Born Legacy, which is the fourth film in the franchise with Jeremy Renner instead of Matt Damon, is that movie takes place during the events, or plays out during the events of the Bourne Ultimatum, which would be interesting to me if you did the same thing with Burn the Witch, where you bring it in as its own story and it plays out, at least the first part of the story plays out during the events of the Thousand Year Blood War arc. So you see the ripple effects of everything that's going on there happening across the world, and how do these people deal with it, and these protagonists. And then afterwards you can bring in like people like Ichigo or Rukia or some of the other captains off to the side or something, to give context of what happened during the time skip before the final chapter of Bleach.
That's actually a really good point you bring up, because when you read the one shot, you're fascinated by all these new possibilities of how the world can be explored, but I personally couldn't help feeling that there was some sort of disconnect between the Western branch and the world we know. And part of the reason I'm dying for more Burn the Witch is I want to see how they tie together. I want to see like that they're not just these two isolated locations, and that they somehow work together. And I think what you say is a good idea, is there should be some visible consequences of what happens in the main Bleach plot in Burn the Witch. But I'm going to transition to one final question I have for you, which you brought up, which I'm really interested in exploring. What would you say to the possibility of they don't do Burn the Witch, they don't do the kids, I don't know, maybe like a year, they give it a break, and then with a new anime, they cover the time skip in between the defeat of Yawak and the final chapter of Bleach?
I think that's something that has a lot of promise. The best way I can explain it is the original, we focus on the kids idea, which everyone and their mother, I'm sure, has decided that that's the best way of continuing the series. That to me always kind of spells Boruto. And while I don't know a whole lot about the series, I do have a lot of fans in my circles of Naruto who simply cannot stand that show or that manga. And I feel like a lot of it goes back to what I was saying beforehand, is it feels like a retread. Like we're starting over. Like if Naruto was your created character in an RPG game, then Boruto is like you going back to level 1 when you were already at level 60, right? And I feel like that would be the worst part about doing it with the kids. You kind of run into a similar problem that Dragon Ball Super had if you do it during the time skip. One, we know where the show is going, and we know, or at least the series as a whole, because we see that final chapter, we know that all of our main players are still alive and well. So you kind of lose a lot of tension, especially in Bleach, more so in Dragon Ball, because Bleach doesn't have a readily available fix-all like the Dragon Balls. So that in and of itself can be a problem, but the way that stories are written, especially shonen manga, that shouldn't be the first thing that you think about and the only thing that drives an idea for a story. It would allow us to see more growth from Ichigo and everybody else, and you can create another antagonist that becomes part of the story and something that you can see them grow and do something like grow as individuals, see them fall in love, start that family, everything, and you don't have to just do a gigantic time skip in order to do it. It would be interesting. The one thing I would ask if they do that, or at least two things, is one, you have to have a better story than just the rinse, wash, and repeat stuff that we talked about earlier. That is Bleach's biggest problem throughout the entire series. And two, if they were going to do that, obviously this is something that they would have to think up months in advance, years even, because it's going to take them a long time to do the 200 plus chapters of the 1,000-Year Blood War arc into an anime. I would hope that if they decide to continue the story, they don't call it a sequel and they just continue it outright while not doing the final chapter. Maybe making a declarative statement that the story is going to continue on and the ending of the manga doesn't necessarily have to be the ending of the anime. I think that would be more exciting for fans.
I think what would work best is, and we still don't know what's going to get incorporated into the anime and what isn't, but I think what would be best to do for all fans is take the light novel. I know there's the light novel where we follow Hisagi and we get a bunch of questions answered. I still need to read that because I hear it's fairly solid. I think what would be best to do to not piss off the main fans and to appease to people who still want more Bleach after this new anime and after Burn the Witch is make a one season, not even sequel, just like, to use a lack of better terms, like a DLC. One season and base it off of the light novel. And then when they present it, when they market it, go, all right, look, you still have questions about that main story. We're going to do one season. We're going to adapt this light novel. If you want to watch it, watch it. We hope you'll like it and we hope it answers your questions. If you were satisfied with the main Bleach anime, that's good too, because this doesn't have to affect that. And I think it would be smart, because then the people who are like, wait, this is it, this is how it ends, can get their questions answered. And then the people who are satisfied and don't want to see like a Boruto treatment where it's beat to death can just have that option.
I think that's an interesting, that would be an interesting direction. And you couple that with everything that's going to probably go on with Burn the Witch, that's enough of continuation of the entire universe that I think would appease me as a fan, let alone the tens of thousands of even millions out there who still are waiting for it to come back and to see how it's animated and want the story to continue beyond that.
Yeah, but as we've been kind of hinting, I think we're in agreement when we say that we'll be satisfied with just a good 1,000-year anime adaptation. No? Do you agree?
Oh yeah, of course. No, of course. Like, I don't want to, I guess we don't want to be greedy about it. We're getting this after so many years that, it's a good thing regardless of what they do afterwards, and we can just all be okay with that. I have been wanting this for a very long time. I think the 1,000-Year Blood War arc, just reading the manga, I remember reading the manga being like, I really wish that this was animated. I can't wait to see this animated, if at all, because it's going to be crazy. It's going to have enough time to put a little bit more filler into the story to really express everything that the manga arc was trying to get through. And I think fans who've either given up on Bleach or been waiting for it for a long time are going to come back to this, and we're all going to come together again and be very excited about it going forward.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I am so excited to see Bleach finally back in the conversation. All I can say to everyone who has stuck with us is, if you haven't already, go read Burn the Witch. It is awesome. It opens up so many opportunities for the universe, and I'm really excited to read the new manga this summer. Mark, do you have any closing thoughts?
Outside of needing to also read Burn the Witch, I think I've said everything I wanted to say.
All right, guys. Well, you know what to do. Subscribe if you like more content like this. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like. Make sure also to check out Mark's channel. He has Real Talk, where he talks about the latest film and television, including Better Call Saul, which I have not watched yet, but it looks great. Guys, thank you for listening, and we both hope to hear from you soon.